Hi, my name is Deb Enright, and this is Money Matters. Thank you for joining us. And as always, thank you to Daryl Thompson of Raymond James for his generous sponsorship of our Money Matters program. Today, we look to better understand the use of one of our community outreach tools to help support our schools in ways we didn't even know existed. We talk with one of our high school principals, Dr. Juli Oyer, to understand the impact the Ambassador Program has had on Fairview High School and her plans for continued community outreach across the Williamson County and Middle Tennessee areas. A brief overview of the Williamson County Schools Ambassadors Program begins our next segment after this break, so stay tuned. Find out all about the new ways that learning about Williamson County schools can inspire you to serve and support our students and schools. We will be right back.
Where can I find out about the Venus flytrap?
Where can I research information on my business competitors?
What is the safety record on the car I want?
Where can I research careers?
Where?
I'm all shook up.
The Tennessee Electronic Library. That's where. And it's free to everyone in our state. Now go to your public library and find out how you can log on and get your password to a world of information just for living in our state. You can probably even figure out the password just by listening to my voice.
Hey, I'm all shook up.
And welcome back to Money Matters. I am so excited to introduce all of you to Dr. Juli Oyer. She is our principal at Fairview High School, and she's going to talk about kind of how they all got ready for the Ambassador Program. She's out in the Fairview cluster. We chose Fairview kind of as the program had gotten into the second or third month. So the first thing I want to do is say welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad you're here, and I'll tell you why I'm extremely glad you're here. Because when we introduced the notion of the program at the principals meeting, I guess it was August, September,
early.
Maybe later than that. I don't remember. It started pretty quickly. But before we were finished, when we looked on our email, okay, so Dr. Oyer had said, hey, how do I get considered to put my school in front of these fantastic people? And just to recap quickly, Julie, because we've talked about it over some of the shows, but the Ambassador Program is something that we have started here in Williamson County Schools that was a brainchild of Carol Birdsong probably 3 years ago. And it was a way to introduce the schools in a comprehensive way to a few of our community leaders. And you all remember the response was incredible. We have 19 people who've come from all over the community who are learning. I think we've actually called it the underbelly of the district. So they've kind of seen everything. They've been on the floor, reading with kindergartners. They've seen some of her athletes talk about the importance of schools. They've seen show choirs. They've talked with science teachers. They've watched technology in the classroom. So we're excited.
School lunches.
And they've eaten school lunches and gone through the line.
Don't leave that out.
That's exactly right. So I think it was very interesting to both Carol and I that really before we'd even finished the announcement, you had said, yeah, can I play with you all? So tell me why that was so important.
Well, I think that the key piece is that I think Fairview has a really unique story to tell, partly because of who they are, but mainly because of what's happening there and what we have the opportunity to do. We are the only true cluster in Williamson County. So every single student who starts in Fairview Elementary or at Westwood Elementary goes to the middle school. Every single kiddo who goes to the middle school is going to come to us. And that's a beautiful reality when you think about things from an educational perspective or from a community perspective. The other piece is we have a lot to brag about, and any opportunity that I have to tell anybody the great things that we're doing, whether it's we being the little people at the elementary school or us with the big people at the high school, we want to tap into that opportunity. The other reason is partly selfish, that it is important to me in kind of my vision of where Fairview High goes, is to create meaningful business relationships. We are a very tight-knit community. We do a lot ourselves, but there's an immense amount of growth that's happening in Fairview. And we, as a school, want to be a part of that growth. We don't want to rest on our laurels of being a good spot. Our scores are good, we're doing good work, but we want to reach out and have businesses coming into us, or having our kiddos having the opportunity to go into those businesses. So all of the vision that went into the Ambassadors program really synced with the vision that I have for the high school. So it was really exciting.
Oh, good. I'm glad. So I think when I went out to meet with you guys, because I think every one of you embraced that. You know, we've got a great story to tell. Good things are happening. We're seeing the growth come out to our community, and how do we kind of capture that and partner with it? So when you all were thinking about, as principals, were thinking about having these individuals come out, how did you think about scripting your story, if you will, or building that story? Because they come out for a day, so you had them for a day. So tell me how you and Joan and Gary thought about putting that together and put in front of those folks.
Well, I think we all really embraced the opportunity to tell our parts of the story. There are things that happen in some schools that happen because they're great things. A lot of those things happen at our school as a means to keep a kid in school, or as a means to graduate a kid. So something as simple as a community meeting. Joan does a community meeting every Friday at her school. It's unbelievable, right? I mean, these hundreds of kids get together and they chant together about going to college. They do cheers, they praise one another. It's unreal. That isn't just a rah-rah fest at Fairview Elementary. That is something that puts college in front of a kid who maybe is coming from a home where college has never been an option, or where college has never been something that they've wanted for a number of very valuable or very valid reasons. So something like that felt like we've got to tell this story. Something as simple as school athletics at Fairview High School. We had athletes who shared the story that I wouldn't be in school. I mean, you might remember those two young men who both were choked up and genuinely emotional about, this is keeping me in school. This is making me the person I am. So something that to an outsider might just be school athletics, we know is what's going to help those guys graduate from high school. So we really attacked it as what we do, but trying to get the ambassadors to see the why behind what we do, because there are a number of layers to that why that aren't simple in Fairview.
Yeah, I think it was achieved. I think at every moment, I think one of the neat things that they saw at the community meeting, which was really fun.
Awesome.
I mean, really, really fun, is the raising up of different kids for different reasons, and teachers as well, and chanting all about what they're going to do with their life. And I loved it, and the parents that were able to come, and you know, the pride on their faces. But I think what was really cool is when one of the little ones came over to a couple of us and looked at us and said, "Are you the high school principal?" I just thought, that is so cool.
Awesome.
I mean, you're an icon. Let's just be honest. And they see that. I think they just see, I guess, if you think about it in terms of siblings, somebody has seen you already, or someone in their extended family has seen you already, so they want to find out who's next. And
or they've seen us, if I can interrupt you,
true.
because we had a wonderful elementary night at the football during the football season. The whole field was covered with little people, and we want them to feel that way. It certainly is not about me. It's about the position in the big high school. But we want them to know it's their high school. It's their spot. And to know that there's a little celebrity there that's awesome.
Oh, it's awesome,
you know?
for a school leader. I think it's great. And I should be clear, Joan Tidwell is at Fairview Elementary, and Nancy Simpkins at Westwood Elementary, and then Gary Schrader at Fairview Middle.
You got it.
All right. So it's neat to have all the four of you working together for that K-12 kind of experience.
Absolutely.
And I think what's also interesting, as opposed to maybe only one other high school, the buildings you guys are in are decades old, and that's a different thing for people to see as well. And I think the other cool thing is you can see from Fairview Elementary, you can see the middle school and the high school.
Absolutely.
And I think on occasions you all share resources as well. So it seems to be a very close close-knit cluster, and I think everybody felt that as well.
Good.
And some great things have prompted people in this program. They have to come up with a partnership. Now, to be fair, many of these folks already are very involved,
Yes.
Not just financially, but also with human capital, if I can use a 21st century term. So they're very involved in the schools. Some are just learning how to get involved. And I think what's been interesting, particularly after the Fairview story, is everybody's imagination just kind of grew, I think, exponentially, and said, wow, okay, so we've seen this perspective from a principal's view of my day. Well, if that's the case, how then can we have an impact on what the leaders are doing, what the teachers are doing, and to support the children? So can you talk to us about, gosh, there's a ton of ambassadors who just were, they felt so connected to Fairview, even though it may have been the first time some of them had seen it.
Yeah, it was.
So I remember there was one ambassador who's just become a favorite of ours, Freddie Scott II. And I wonder if you can talk to us about the moment, I think it clicked for him about how he could get involved at Fairview, and then what he's going to do for you guys.
Well, I don't know the details actually of what we're hoping to do, but I'll tell you the key moment, and I'm really excited because related to Freddie, he's going to be speaking at the baccalaureate service, which is a non-denominational church service that happens for seniors. And I'll tell you how we ended up there because it was marvelous that so you remember we had all of the athletes in the locker room, and they got their the ambassadors got their t-shirts and got to kind of have the locker room feel, and each of the kids talked about why athletics have been helpful to them for a number of reasons, not just keeping them in school, but developing leadership qualities that they didn't know they had, becoming an extrovert when they didn't know they had that in them. So awesome pieces there. But at the end of that, Freddie shared who he was in terms of his athletic background and being a member of the NFL, and then shared a little bit of what his work is in terms of life after NFL. And so he said very specifically to everyone, you have to be thinking about your life after sports. And so he really helped underline our whole purpose was, to underline that their whole purpose is what sports have done for me. Not that this is the end all. Several of the kids are going to go and play college something, do college athletics. But he was really underlining that the character, the thread of the character. And so that was awesome. So when I was talking with the seniors about, okay, so who do we have at this baccalaureate, and helping them kind of shape it, they were like, what about that Freddie guy? Which was great. And then, they reached out to him and he said, absolutely. I think it fits right there. But we spoke, Joan and Gary and I spoke to Freddie probably for 30 minutes after the ambassador's visit that day about the mental health needs in our community, the fact that we have folks, kids, families that need somebody in the community, and they need somebody in the community. We have amazing resources in Franklin, but some of the resources in individual families don't allow them to get to Franklin. It's not enough to identify for somebody what they need. We have to be able to identify what they need and turn around and offer it to them. So we began the conversation on planting some seeds of what do we do? How can you help? How can the expertise that he has through his work with the NFL benefit kids? What would it mean if we started those conversations and made it normal to need help when they were at the elementary school? What would it mean if strong men were talking about mental health and needs at the middle school? By the time they get to us, it's a really different conversation if they've been having it for 10 or 15 years. It's a really different conversation. So we're really excited about the potential partnership with him. Very excited.
I think he really, I think it was really in that, and as I recall, in that locker room where it really was those, and everyone's had those moments, I think, in this program. It was either a, wow, I didn't know, or okay, I can see myself here, or okay, I see myself here, I'm not really quite sure, so now I'm going to talk with the school leaders and find out how that's going to work. I think for Freddie, the nice thing he was one of those ambassadors that right out of the gate said, okay, I think I've got some things that I can share. So his expertise not only in the mental health, working with the NFL and being a player, and his dad was a player, but also talking about parenting and what that really means.
Absolutely.
And isn't that, which I think is
Absolutely.
wonderful. I think the other thing that I like about what we did at Fairview was, and this is what you've been saying, is kind of that contextual element. So instead of just saying, oh, here's a cute little elementary school, and here's a great middle school with fantastic fine arts, and then here's this wonderful high school, and it's this nice little kind of cluster. It's very neighborly, and the community all likes itself. It's the context under which you all do your work, and realizing that I think Joan was in one of the first graduating classes for the whole cluster. And so for the principal to carry that, the same as what we were talking about with the school leadership, great threads for kids, as well as letting them see the possibilities, particularly if they are first generation college seekers, and what that means. And I think sometimes in our discussions about the county, the fullness of our picture, if you will, is not revealed in the way it can be.
Sure.
And so I think sometimes the ambassador program allows us to do that a little bit more.
Well, and I think it allows all of that is very true. There were several moments where the ambassador said we had no idea that this was a part of Williamson County. We've never been here. We had never heard those types of things were happening here. But I think another piece of this that was very, very important was that it allowed our students and our school to be seen. And having the opportunity to share that, Ricky Bledsoe's runs the only carpentry program in all of Williamson County. That's huge. The students that come out of that leave with a trade, and they leave with this amazing opportunity to go and do things in the community. For those students to have the opportunity to be seen increases their value. It increases their value when John Mayer, sends an incredible donation to that program and says, I want them to have the opportunity to keep doing that, and tell me when a kid needs a job, and be in touch with me if you need anything. Puts us in touch with Crossland's building supply store. All of those things happen, and that's amazing, but there's a unquantifiable piece that happens in the eye of the student who gets to stand there in front of really successful business people and say, this is what I do. That shed is what I built.
Right.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Well, and I think the kids, the IT kids, the Four Musketeers, I think I call them, with great respect, and their story about really helping the entire district fix, was it 500 laptops in the summer, and then being able to tell that story in front of some major IT people, and understanding that inclusion in what we as a district were doing for our students, at least for one of the young men, has changed his thoughts about what he's going to pursue in college and where he's going to go. And I mean, I just love that as well. I think that's so much fun as well.
It was huge.
Yeah,
It's huge.
and I'm glad you brought up John Mayer, because I think that immediate response certainly was surprising for us, but I think that it also shows that once the story is out, and what's also interesting too is that I think what's nice is the ambassadors are also giving voice to the story, but in a very different way.
Yes.
So for an educator or policy wonk, I'm going to talk about it one way.
Yep.
But for somebody who is an entrepreneur or somebody who has a major firm, they're going to talk about it a little differently as well. And I think that's what we're finding. We have a story about one of the ambassadors coming to one of the cluster's PTO meetings, and she lives in Fairview. Patty Carroll lives in Fairview, and she, I guess, was able to kind of contribute to the conversation and say, there is a lot of there's different pictures out there for all of the high schools and for all of the middle schools, and I've seen those different pictures now, and I think what she was able to do is to educate folks who just know their cluster. I mean, we all just know our cluster where our kids are, and so I appreciated that we're having other folks give voice to what we need in terms of the district.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, we're going to take a little break. And we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the Ambassador Program and Designs for Fairview. And we appreciate so much that you're here.
It's a blast. I'm having fun.
Well, good. So we'll be back in just a little bit. Stay tuned to Money Matters.
When approaching a stop sign or traffic light, if a car and cycle are arriving at the same time, the car needs to stay back just a bit, allowing the cyclist room to move in front into the turn lane. This allows the cyclist to turn left safely. If the lane is too narrow, or if the cyclists are traveling pretty much the same speed as traffic, then the cyclists have the right to come out and take the lane. Stay safe and have fun, and most of all, enjoy the ride.
And welcome back to Money Matters. I continue my conversation with Dr. Juli Oyer, principal of Fairview High School. We're kind of having an unpacking of the Ambassador Program when you all came out to the cluster. And so we've kind of given that big view. You know, here's the big program, the big day. Here's what some of the players are going to do in the Fairview cluster. And I guess what I'd like to do now is kind of bring it down to, so for the folks who are watching and going, well, that's cool, but you know, I'm not really sure how what's that mean for me? Yeah, how can I get from watching what you're doing to get involved in what you're doing? So can you talk a little bit about, you know, how something small can really have a big impact on a child or a school?
Sure. Well, I think the number one thing is, I think this is true for every administrator in Williamson County, we want our parents involved. We feel very strongly that these are our schools. I always kind of cringe a bit when I hear people say, this is my school. It's the farthest thing from truth. It is our school. I share it with, over 600 kids and, over 80 adults and everybody in the community. We really want that to be true. So if you jump off from that place, the smallest thing that someone sees as a possibility becomes something that can have the greatest effect. It's something as simple as, we're closing our business. I have 300 cases of pencils. Could I give those? Don't ever think that we're not going to be able to use it. Something small like that you're able to come back and give to a school, or something incredible. You used the term human capital earlier. We want people. We had this, Patty Carroll, you brought up earlier, we are beginning a conversation about having a garden, and that all of a sudden we're having conversations with master gardeners and needing master gardeners. I'm not prepared to have conversations with master gardeners, but here we are. That's great. And those people, we just want that to be a part of the relationship. And I think that's a beautiful thing in Fairview, a very true thing in Fairview, that there's a great opportunity to make significant impact. It doesn't have to be large donations from business people. It can be time. I'm retired and I want to come read with kids. We've got kids in the high school who would love to have adults come in. We would love to do financial partnerships with people who are coming in to teach our parents how to do things. Cooking things with kids for nutrition. I mean, there are just a million opportunities that you don't have to have thousands of dollars to give. Right. And that we want the people. So I think the opportunity for impact is just huge.
So whatever your talent is, there's probably a school someplace. And I really like the example you had of the pencils. Sure. Because I think when you hear the initiative is bring your technology to school and it's all 21st century stuff, oh my gosh, do they still use number twos?
We still use pencils. Yep.
Still use them and still valid and still good. And I guess it would be one of those things where to open the conversation, if you feel you have something to give, you just contact the school.
Sure.
And that can be, and just as you said, it can be sitting with a kid and listening to them read. It can be, I couldn't really help in terms of math tutoring.
Sure, me
Maybe
neither.
you could.
Right. Nope.
But yeah, that's not really my expertise. But I'd be certainly, happy to find some people who could do that.
Well, and I think that taps into something else that you might sit and go, right now I don't have anything to offer, but my friend Henry, who I just was talking with over coffee the other night, was saying this. He needs to get in touch with the school. I wonder if that could have an impact. Something, putting mulch around trees on a school campus. We had that earlier this year. And somebody just said, I've got some extra. Perfect. Bring the mulch by.
Super.
But that type of thing, it goes back to the school being seen and giving it lends validity to what we do every day. And I think that that's a beautiful thing.
Well, I also like, we talked about that thread, that K-12 thread, the leadership and who's the high school principal, and some of the folks who are teachers and school leaders within the schools are graduates as well. And I think that whole modeling, which we talk about a lot, if I see, as a little kid, if I see a neighbor or a friend or a parent or a friend's parent helping that way, then I'm just going to, because I've seen it, I'm just going to assume that that's what you do. And I really like that layering part of it too, so that, from the programs we do with community outreach, and then for shows like this, and for when you talk about things and on the school websites, etc., there's got to be a variety of ways to plug in. And I would suspect that when someone says, hey, what can I do to help? Just as you've articulated, there's like this whole list of things from supplies to time to their talent to come in and help. And I guess it's probably not just the core stuff. It's not just reading and math, right?
Absolutely not. Not in a high school. I mean, it's true everywhere, but certainly from a high school perspective, if you've got a great voice and you spent time perfecting that somewhere, we have fine arts programs that would benefit from you being there. If you practiced, drama talent in college and you just would love to have a little bit of that in your life, but you don't want to go act and do, those are great opportunities. Those are people opportunities. And that we know that relationships are the core of everything we do. So for that to happen on a campus from somebody besides the educators, what a great way for our kids to have that exposure.
Yeah, it is a nice way for them to build relationships that aren't either directed or somehow connected to grades or assessments or classrooms. So they get the practice of that as well. Well, I like the partnerships that we have developed, certainly through the ambassador. I like very much with what you're saying in terms of the whole community needs to be involved. And I don't think that's a hard thing for people to do. I think you've just said, no matter what it is, from this humongous large thing to just calling and saying, I've got an hour a week, that's something that we can do. And district-wide, I think that's something that we can do.
Yes.
Because I think that the needs are ever-flowing. I think that the nice thing about what I have learned about the district in the time that I've been here is that the landscape is constantly changing. It may be somewhat the same, but the needs are changing and they'll be much different within the year. The things that are coming down from the state are causing different things to happen in the classroom, which also affects outside of schools. And so I think it's really neat for the community to learn about it and then figure out how many neat things they can do in the classroom. Well, Juli, thank you so much for sending that email and saying, hey, can I play?
Yeah.
I think that you made our program so much better because of the perspective that you brought to it. And certainly I think that's shown in the response by the ambassadors. And I'm interested to hear about all the other things that are going to come around because of what the ambassadors are doing, but also because of what the community is going to learn to do through the leadership of you and the other school leaders that are there at Fairview. So
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Well, I suspect we'll be out again.
We'll be there.
We'll be back in just a moment to finish out the show. My thanks again to Dr. Juli Oyer, and this is Money Matters. Community partnerships are the bedrock of supporting our Williamson County schools to provide our students with experiences and opportunities unavailable to them otherwise. Juli Oyer, principal of Fairview High School, described how important community partnerships are to the success of our schools. She also tells us that no matter what your talents are and where your life has taken you, there is somewhere in our school community that you can get involved. The value of sharing your life's journey with our students and families is an immeasurable treasure to our school. This type of resource goes beyond budget expenditures and allocations. So what talents and expertise can you share with our students? That's our show for today. Thank you to our sponsor, Darrell Thompson of Raymond James, for his continued support. My name is Deb Enright, and this is Money Matters.